waiting for Morning, everyone. Thank you for being here today. This is the first meeting of the new council, and I would like to ask Tyler Harrison-Hunt, one of our new councillors, to do the karakia this morning, please.
Kia ora. Tukunu mai te aroha, ki runga i a tātou, kua huia mai nei, kia whakarongo, kia kōrero, kia ako tātou katoa, horahia te horahi pai, tūturu whakamawa kia tīna, haumie huie, tāki.
Stand up. Yeah. I just, tēnā koutou. I would just like to acknowledge the death of Dr. Terry Ryan, who died last week, aged 81. Terry Ryan was known for creating the genealogy database for Ngāi Tahu. He was also involved in drafting the legislative provisions that helped Te Reo Māori be recognised as an official language for Aotearoa New Zealand. In 2001, Terry received an honorary doctorate from the Lincoln University, and in 1994, he was awarded the MBE for services to the Māori community in the South Island. Terry was the kaumātua for the Christchurch City Libraries during the early 2000s. Rest in peace, Terry. Can I please ask everyone to stand for a minute's silence? Thank you very much. Right, so we're moving on to external.
Yeah.
The next thing we have for you today is the external recognition for council services. And I'm very pleased to say the Water New Zealand Award. So the Three Waters team have won a national award for environmental sustainability. You'll probably be familiar with the multi-million-dollar floodplain management project in the upper catchment of the Heathcote River, which is nearly now complete. While the main objectives are to construct a network of storage basins that can store more than 1 million cubic metres of floodwater in big rain events, it also creates 3 stormwater wetlands, which treats the runoff from roads and makes our water a lot cleaner before it goes into the river. It was an opportunity to do a lot more than that, so we did. We then finished, when we're finished, there will be 3 kilometres of the Cashmere Stream, featuring support for species like freshwater crayfish, freshwater mussels, longfin eel and whitebait. 110,000 native trees and 600,000 plants will be planted. And there'll be over 10 kilometres of regional paths for the public and large areas of garden that will provide sustainable place to learn traditional Māori medicine. The award from Water New Zealand is a fantastic. The award is from Water New Zealand, and it is fantastic that they have acknowledged our council's efforts in this way. The most important thing, though, is that this project is going to have lasting benefits for Christchurch, and particularly for the people who live near the Heathcote River. Well done, team. And Dawn and I would like to come and have a photo with the team.
And their trophy.
whole of New Zealand. Oh, I'm not going to. Yes. Hold on, real high gates. Yeah, there we go. Right. But wait, there's more. Our customer services team have won in 2020, 2021, and now again in 2022, the CRM Contact Centre Industry Award for Public Services. And once again, it's for the whole of New Zealand. It's fantastic. The awards focus on the quality of the customer service experience provided by the contact centres across New Zealand and aim to highlight the impact that the experience has on the company's image and the commitment to service excellence. Our customer services team are the first point of contact for council, serving our customers face-to-face and by phone or online 24 hours a day. They take up to 380,000 calls, 115,000 online, and 126,000 face-to-face interactions per year. Their philosophy of putting exceptional customer service at the centre of our council is clearly evident. And our team came top once again in the public services category. So I'd like to congratulate them on their achievement and thank them for their important work they do. Thank you very much.
Sarah, you're going to bring the team down?
You don't be scared, we don't bite.
Not all of the team members. And representing the fact that it is a team effort, so there are people from our training team here, our workforce planning team, we make sure we have people where we need them to be, as well as our leadership team, and of course the people at front line.
Thank you. Very much appreciated. Thank you very much. Thank you. Well done. Okie doke. Thank you guys. I'll just go on to apologies. We have no apologies, and just to say that Councillor Kewen is attending.
Sorry, I think Celeste Donovan's an apology.
Oh, sorry. Yes, she is. Yes. Yeah, so sadly, yes. Celeste is not here today. Sorry. Do I move that? Thank you. Thank you, Pauline. Sam and Pauline. Thank you. Declarations of interest. We have no declarations of interest today. Public forums. The Christchurch 360 Trail. Judith Miller and Gillian Harris presenting on behalf of the Christchurch 360 Trail. Please come forward. Thank you very much. Just to remind you, you've got 5 minutes.
Phil and City Councillors. Firstly, congratulations on your election. You've put your hand up for a hard job. So well done you. It's not everyone's cup of tea. I'm pleased to be here today at the first council meeting. Over the past few weeks, I have written to all of you with the specific purpose of raising the awareness of the Christchurch 360 Trail. Thank you to those of you who have taken the time to respond. My purpose today is simple: to urge you to make a decision. This is the question. Is the Christchurch 360 trail going to go through the estuary or not? That's the question. We've been fighting this battle since the trail was launched 7 years ago, and we're tired of it, as I suspect many of you are too. A decision was imminent in 2019, but it was halted because more consultation with mana whenua was required. This occurred. The Ihutai Ahu Whenua Trust duly endorsed the project with mitigations based on the science of the Boffa-Miskell report, which the Council commissioned. The Ihutai Trust rejects the proposal of public consultation, as do we, because much misinformation about harm to birdlife has been circulated, contaminating what ought to be a level playing field. Originally, the Sustainability and Community Resilience Committee was to make the decision. Let that process continue. You are a new council, a combination of new and fresh voices who are elected to make decisions. That's what we want you to do. But before you do, Christchurch 360 would like to invite you to a walk-through of the area so that you can see for yourself what it is you're being asked to decide on. We want the 140-kilometre trail around the city to showcase the best that we have to offer, which is why this particular section is so important. We know there are many factors to consider: budgetary, route design, dog control, and now possibly 3 waters affecting ownership. But I hope you will agree that the time for procrastination is over. This council, this new council, has an opportunity to do it once and do it well. Trust in the science of the Boffa-Miskell report, apply your collective wisdom, and as somebody not too far from here said, let's get stuff done. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much. That was very enlightening. We do questions?
Yes,
Yeah? You've got a bit of time there. Has anyone got any questions that would like to put forward?
Nope.
Don't all speak at once. No,
They
thank
shall
you.
shout.
Sorry, yes, Pauline.
Could
thank
I
you.
just clarify that the issue was whether the trail goes around the estuary?
No.
Or
There's been a bit of misconception because the route was labelled estuary edge, but it's not edge. You can see I've put only one picture up there. That's a part where the trail would go through. So it's to be fully screened from the estuary. There'll be no contact between the trail. There'll be bush, and then there will be the estuary.
so not
it's-
right on the edge.
No,
but-
it is not on the edge. That's a misconception, I think, because of the name of it. It was
And
called
then the other alternative route was down, is it Dyer's Road?
Well, there were 4 options put up altogether, none of which were particularly satisfactory. This is the one that is the jewel in the crown. I mean, like I
So
said,
you're telling us that iwi and the Ihutai Trust are both supportive of this option?
yes, they have reported that information back to the council, and they, as I say, they reject the notion of public consultation, which was what was on the books, and they, like us, want the council to make a decision.
So are we able to pick this up? And yes,
Because I was under the impression that the Estuary Trust was not.
yeah, me too. Yeah. They're not.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
All right, we've got 1 second.
That's it.
No.
Finished?
Yep, time is up. I'm sorry, gentlemen. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank
That's
you.
Very, very good.
And now we have deputations.
Okay, the next thing we're moving on is deputations. Nathaniel is presenting on item 5, the committee structure.
No.
Is what it's called.
There are 3 of us actually part of
Living
the
way.
delegation, if that's okay.
Oh, right, my apologies. Yep.
Is it right?
That's what it says.
Cool.
It should be living wage, though, shouldn't it?
Is it not living wage?
Kia ora, everyone. Lovely to see you all here. So I'm Nathaniel Hertz-Ettinger. I'm the community organizer for the Living Wage Movement. Before we get into the core part of our deputation, I just want to speak to a little bit of who we are as a movement. So we represent a coalition of a wide range of faith organizations, unions, and community groups. And we have a pretty wide selection of them here today. So if you look into the crowd behind us here, we have representatives from Keep Our Assets Canterbury. Here we go. Anglican Care. NZEI. The Durham Street Methodist Church. Anglican, I already said Anglican Care, I've got that twice. Knox Presbyterian Church. Sustainable Ōtautahi Christchurch. The Make It 16 campaign. And Anglican Advocacy. Great. So as you can see, we represent a really wide range of organisations all across New Zealand and all across Christchurch that all care really deeply about this issue. We're a diverse coalition and we have members in all the wards in the city. And so what we're here to talk about is basically working poverty in the city and what Christchurch City Council can do to address that. So just quickly, the living wage is simply the hourly rate that a worker needs to be paid so that they're able to participate in society and live a decent life. It's the wage that a family of 2 adults and 2 children would need if they're working a total of 60 hours per week, if they want to raise their kids in a healthy way, in a warm house with healthy food and access to clothing, healthcare, education. It's not luxury, it's just living a basic but decent life. And that's all we're asking for today from the council, is to make sure that your workers, the people who do public services, can do that. So yeah, now with that, I'd like to pass on to, is it Joyce first?
Yeah, kia ora koutou. My name's Joyce Yeager. I'm the chair of Sustainable Ōtautahi Christchurch, or SAC. SAC is very interested in helping facilitate long-term sustainability in Ōtautahi Christchurch in all areas, including social, economic, and environmental. And as part of that, it's really important to us to advocate for a living wage for everyone. So that's why we're here. We're really grateful for the commitments that were made at the Living Wage Forum by some of you, Jake McClellan, Yanni Johansson, Melanie Coker, Celeste Donovan, and Phil Major. Thanks very much. You all committed to giving CCHL a 2023 deadline for living wage accreditation and amending Christchurch City Council's policy to ensure that all CCHL directors understand the importance of a living wage for all workers. Mayor Major, thanks for your commitment. Today, the council will be confirming your appointment, Sam McDonald, as chair and Melanie Coker as deputy chair of the Finance and Performance Committee, which handles CCHL business. We hope you've conveyed to them that the importance of the living wage and the commitment to the living wage movement. To all members of the Finance and Performance Committee, we must ensure that CCHL is given a clear deadline for living wage accreditation. Along with the 35 city care workers still on less than the living wage, there may be hundreds of contracted workers on poverty wages at CCHL, and you can change that. And now I'll hand it over to Gabby.
Thank you. Kia ora, everyone. I'm Gabrielle. I work for Anglican Advocacy, and just to keep it short and sweet, paying people enough to raise a family with dignity is a no-brainer, and it's simple. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Yeah, in conclusion, I just want to say, please, councillors, get in touch if you have questions or concerns. We're always happy to meet and go through these issues and address your concerns. And we think that all councillors here and the mayor shares the vision for Christchurch that we have, which is as a place where all workers can thrive and where they can raise their families well and they can be part of the community. So we see our role is to help you all realise that vision, and we're going to be here for the next 3 years supporting you and also holding you to account. So kia ora. And I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you very much. Is there Tim?
Yeah, hey Anthony. Hey, just wondering, and it's not political parties, I'm just wondering with the ministries in Wellington, how have you got on with them? Because they're the ones that advise government and policy, etc. And in some degree, you could argue they set it. But have you, your organisation, and have you had
Yep.
dialogue with in which ministries, and are they on board or?
Yeah, so the New Zealand government at a national level has committed to paying all of its workers and all of its contracted workers a living wage.
That would also include those like for us, we're identifying CCHL. So we've got the families of the 5 big ones, and then we've got Eco Central and others that spin off that, and all the contractors, etc. So that's the same for those ministries.
I think when it comes to, I guess the equivalent at a national level would be like state-owned enterprises and companies like Air New Zealand, which have where the government owns a lot of shares. We're not quite there yet.
Cleaners that clean Parliament. So
and other
government.
yeah. To be,
I'm just wondering if they've got the same principles, and I'm not aware of that hasn't been vocalised at all.
yeah. So in at the last general election, we got that commitment. So all cleaners, all security guards on government property are paid a living wage.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, Yanni, far away.
Yeah, thank you for your deputation. I'm not sure if you've looked at the terms of reference, but we can't delegate the remuneration and employment policy to either finance and performance or the CEO subcommittee, but we can as a council develop a policy. Do you think we should be explicit about a process around adopting a very clear policy around remuneration and employment policy that recognises our commitment to the living wage?
Do you mean for council-controlled organisations?
It's across the council family.
Oh, right. Okay. So, I mean, what we're focusing on today is Christchurch City Holdings Limited. I think a general policy would be good. You know, if the council as a whole simply enacted a policy that said all council-controlled organisations must be living wage accredited, that would be fantastic. The thing that's really coming up as a deadline is that letter of expectation to Christchurch City Holdings Limited. And this is where you as a council set your expectations to CCHL about what you want them to do in the next year. And that's something that you'll be drafting a letter of expectation for and going through their statement of intent probably later this year. And so that's for us the urgent thing that we're pushing for now, is just make sure that in the letter of expectation that goes out to CCHL and in the statement of intent that they return to you as a council, a really clear deadline is included for living wage accreditation, because the council the CCHL has started this process years ago, back in 2017. They've made progress, but they're not all the way there, and we think it's time that we can move on to a bit of accountability with a clear deadline.
Thank you. Aaron, on screen you've got a question.
Yeah, thank you for coming in. And so I'll roll 2 questions into one. Your position on like a youth wage and also staff starting out, like if someone's been long-term unemployed, should they start straight onto the living wage, or should there be a trial wage so though people are encouraged to employ some of those people and get them working rather than the costs that might be associated and put them off? Do you have a position on that and the youth wage? Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So on the issue of youth workers, so we have a clear exception in cases where young people are working as interns or are receiving qualifications and training. In those cases where there's a really clear formal structure for it, those employees can be paid less than the living wage while the organisation's still accredited. When it comes to that second issue around long-time unemployed workers being paid less than the living wage, from a council point of view, I don't think that's a necessary incentive. I think you have a social purpose as an organisation, and I think you can afford it. Just to give an example, Phillipstown Community Hub in Phillipstown, organisation that does a huge amount of community work on a shoestring budget, reliant on grant funding, and they employ people who are coming out of long-term unemployment, who are coming out of prison sentences or from drug rehabilitation centres. They employ them as gardeners and caretakers on their land, and they employ them at the living wage. And they see that as actually being an essential way of making sure those workers feel part of society and feel valued for the work that they do. So we think council can do that.
Did you want to?
My question was for Dawn, actually. Have we built the living wage into our procurement policies? Just remind me, I think we did, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
Thank you.
But it's quite a narrow weighting. I think it's only maybe 4% of your sort of overall weighting. It's not a criteria, right? Is that correct?
It is.
Oh, it's a set
is.
certain criteria. So all okay, interesting. Yeah, that's great to hear.
That used up time. That's absolutely fantastic. Once again, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, item 4, presentations of petitions. We have none. Item 5, council committee structure. Is Mary coming up to the front? Thank you very much.
Great. That's staff speak to report.
Shall I just start? Okay. This report is just presenting the Mayor's decision on the governance committee structure for Christchurch City Council for this triennial. The decision has been made under Section 41A of the Local Government Act and in accordance with Schedule 7 of the Local Government Act. The Mayor has identified that and you'll see in the memo, that this structure, he believes, is the best way to enable efficient and effective decision making and also facilitate transparency and also community participation in decision making. Councillors will also be aware that there were some further discussions between the Mayor and councillors about this, and therefore the Mayor has actually made some recommendations regarding minor amendments, and these he's proposing that these are made under Schedule 7, Section 31 of the Local Government Act. So they are now on the screen there. Also added, you will just note that there are draft terms of reference attached to this report, as well as the calendar for the triennial.
Is this on the hub, Mary, the updated one?
No, but Sam can pop it
You can
up
circulate
on the
it.
hub.
Just
Or
because
circulate
you
it.
can't get all the recommendations there on the screen, but if they could email it, that would be fine. But cool.
Okay. So I just ask for questions.
Well, so do you want us to just walk through those one by one if people haven't read them, those amendments?
I think that would be helpful, Mary.
Okay,
We'll just
so
email it out
the first amendment is just something that is just noting around the council hearing panel, which will comprise of all elected members. So that's mayor, councillors and community board members, with the delegation to select hearing panels sitting with the manager of hearings and council support. So that just allows us to quickly and efficiently establish hearing panels for different matters. It's the same procedure that happened last triennial. The next one is about agreeing that Councillor Barber be appointed as the Deputy Chair for Health, Safety and Wellbeing Committee, and that Councillor Peters remains a member of the committee. And it also notes that this has been done at the request of Councillor Peters to be discharged from that, rather than anybody doing that. So that was his request. It agrees that Councillor McClellan be discharged from Te Hohanga Committee and Councillor Donovan be appointed to that committee. The next one, number 7, is agrees that the Chair of the Finance and Performance Committee be appointed as a member of Te Hohanga Committee, and that Councillor Coker be discharged from that committee, noting that the Deputy Chair, who is Councillor Coker, will deputise for the Chair if he's unable to attend that meeting. The next one, number 8, is a request that staff provide advice regarding the option to establish a youth committee, and that advice includes the potential terms of reference and membership. The next one is to establish a suburban regeneration portfolio with Councillor Donovan as the portfolio lead. And the next recommendation 10, is requests that staff provide advice on the establishment of additional portfolios, including but not limited to the arts and culture portfolio, noting that staff advice will describe the nature and the benefits of any additional portfolio. Just also recommendation number 11 notes that the terms of reference for all portfolio leads will be further refined and agreed by council. And also a last recommendation is just noting that the first meeting of Finance and Performance Committee is scheduled for the 30th of November at 9:30 in the council chambers.
Thank you very much, Mary. Right, Melanie and Pauline. Sorry, Pauline first, Melanie second.
You need a mover and seconder.
Sorry.
I was just going to move an amendment, please, that Jake McClellan be appointed a member of the Chief Executive Performance Committee there, because I think it's a better balance in numbers, and I'd like to have the support of Jake on that, along with Sam and Jamie and the Mayor.
Okay, so Pauline and Tim. So do I talk about that now?
No, I don't.
Mr. Mayor, can I just get clarity in terms of like the standing orders? Are these your appointments, or are they a council decision, or is it Mayor's appointments? I'm just unclear with where that is.
So the proposal was the Mayor's proposal, so it was a decision the Mayor made under Section 4A, which he is entitled to do. These are additional recommendations are made under Section Schedule 7, where the council as a whole has the ability to recommend and make decisions on membership of committees.
Okay, so it's like the deputy mayor kind of thing. The mayor can appoint it, but then if the council wants to undermine it, they can.
Yes, it's a clunky piece of legislation. Yeah.
So my intention is definitely not to undermine the Mayor. My intention is to actually help by getting a more balanced committee here, and I just want to reiterate that.
I'm sure it'll be viewed that way.
Righto. So we've got a mover and seconder for an amendment. So is there any discussion on that? Do we do that? Or do we just go straight to...
Oh, sorry. If we move
No, I think we have to do each one, don't we?
No, we'll do the amendment first.
Amendment first.
Do the amendment first, and then it will become the
Sorry, yeah, apologies. We need to get the mover and seconder for the other, the original.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry,
Sorry, that was my
So
we've got a mover and seconder.
I'll move it. Tim will second it. So now what do I do?
If you're happy to include Jake in that committee, it doesn't need to be an amendment. You
Yeah.
just include it if you just decide to.
No, but I can now ask for the amendment to be voted on.
Yes, you can.
That's right. So is there any discussion on the amendment? Yeah.
Is there a seconder for the amendment?
Yes.
I just want to be clear
No,
when we're
Tim's
asking
moved to
questions of the new recommendations. Are we doing that now, or do you want to vote on amendments first?
The amendment first, Yanni.
Here's an idea. Let's let the Mayor speak first.
Questions of Mary.
And just point of order on this, the Mayor's moved his recommendations. It's been seconded by Councillor Scandrett. Pauline's moved an amendment. There needs to be a seconder for the amendment.
Councillor Templeton.
Sarah's seconded it. Perfect.
That's correct.
I agree with Sam though. Let's let the Mayor speak to them.
Are there any further questions?
Is there
of Mary?
any further questions of Mary? Paul, Sarah? And then Mel?
Thanks, Mary. I'm just interested in the portfolios. So there's a very brief kind of rationale for doing the portfolios, but there's no terms of reference, and we'll work on those. But why those specific portfolios and not something like Sport and Rec, for example, or why those particular 5 at this stage?
So my understanding, but the Mayor may be able to add to this and clarify, but my understanding was that the Mayor identified these portfolios on 2 bases. One was following his discussions with councillors, when they were in that first week, but also to identify areas that were of particular focus in terms of population groups that needed to be considered across each decision. So that was youth, disability with the Accessibility Committee, and also multicultural groups, and also other areas that were actually such as climate change or issues that needed to be considered in every decision, or the impact of it to be considered in every decision. So there was a councillor always focusing on those things in decision making. It wasn't to actually appoint somebody to focus on an area where we actually have an organisational structure, such as sport and recreation, where there is a unit, there's a focus area, you've got policy advice coming through about that, and you'll have specific papers. And so we don't want to duplicate an organisational structure with a portfolio. So this is actually about cross-cutting. So I don't know whether...
That's right. We're just trying to streamline the place to make a lot less work for staff, and we have people who are passionate, want to champion a particular area of council, and that's where I've tried to put people that have got a genuine interest in a particular area.
Okay, so next question. In 2021, there was a Peter Winder review into the governance of Wellington City Council, which had some really quite strong things to say about the use of portfolios in Wellington and how that interfered with some of the staff, their work, and had some governance issues. And I'm wondering what mitigations have been put in place so that we don't face the same issues.
So that is why there's the recommendation about clarity about roles. So that report mentioned things around uncertainty about roles and accountabilities of portfolio holders, the impact on productivity and efficiency of staff, unequal access to information, and confusion about councillor and staff roles. So those were the key things that they identified about their portfolios. That is the reason why there's the additional recommendation that the Mayor's put forward to actually make further clarity for portfolio holders and the rest of council about the roles of portfolio holders, so we don't get into those sort of situations.
Yeah, and that's likely to include accountability for those with the roles as well, and that sort of maybe quarterly reporting to council, so that there's the opportunity for that transparency and accountability in the roles too.
Yep, so the initial brief about that had a more annual reporting, but there will be some consideration whether that is regular enough and whether quarterly reporting is required, so that will come back in that advice.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Templeton, for raising that. We are absolutely fully aware of the Wellington report, and we are considering those matters in terms of the further advice if council adopts these portfolios or any others.
Melanie.
A few different things. I was wondering for the resolution around the youth committee, if that could, that's probably fine, but I was wondering if it could be reworded about the continuation of the Te Paipakari committee.
So in the legislation, unless the council makes a resolution before the end of the last triennial to continue a committee, they are automatically disestablished. So they actually cease being placed unless there's a resolution. You'll remember that you had a resolution at your September council meeting that continued a number of committees, some of those which have been slightly amended in the Mayor's decision, and some of them we have noted will come back with further advice on. So that committee wasn't one of those committees that the council in the last triennial decided to continue, so therefore it would need to be re-established as opposed to discontinued.
Okay, I was unaware of that. Has the youth community been talked to about, they assumed that the committee was continuing, as had I actually, but have they been talked to?
No, so they will be definitely in that advice about the committee. We will talk to the youth sector and maybe the wider youth sector around that committee, what its form and makeup could be.
Okay. And then my following one is along the same lines with the multicultural committee, and has that community been talked to about us not continuing that multicultural committee from last term?
My understanding is yes, and the PAG group, the Multicultural Advisory Group, has continued, so that's the community side of that. And I think the mayor and some councillors met with them last evening.
Yep.
So my understanding that yes, they do that has been discussed with them, but I can clarify that for sure.
Definitely.
So I'd like to either move as another recommendation or adjust number 8 to also include about a multicultural committee, so we can seek advice about that with terms of reference and membership.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much the same wording as 8 or added in.
You like that? Just
I guess a
added?
separate resolution would make sense, wouldn't it?
Or added on to 8.
Or maybe make it separate if someone likes youth, but
If it's just advice, just
okay, added in.
Added in.
To establish
Yep.
a youth committee and a multicultural committee.
it's only the advice around it.
Okie dokie. What have we got? Yanni.
Thank you. I was just trying to align with the justification for the portfolios with what we've heard from staff, given that Central City's got massive staff resource going into it, so does Suburban Regen, and so does sustainability. So I'm just sort of trying to understand further the justification for the portfolios, given that there is actually a huge part of the organisation that's focused on the Central City, and yet we're still being told that there's a portfolio on that. So how does that provide efficiency? And how is that different to sports and recreation or the community sector?
So my understanding, but this is I don't know. The mayor, do you want to answer this first, or
No,
shall
you
I
go.
answer it?
You
So
go.
my understanding, but this is not. This was not a portfolio that I established. But my understanding is that it is an area that actually requires particular attention, and it's another area that actually spans an across unit focus. So we have issues around safety, which is in one unit, issues around youth and youth activity, which is in another group and area, and also around capital development and capital project and vertical, and also about transport. So it's an area that requires particular coordinated and focus across it rather than a single group of activities. So it doesn't fall within one group of activities, it stretches across, spans across a number of activity groups. Is that, I don't know whether the proposed portfolio holder or mayor want to add to that.
Okay, Sam? Sorry, did you have another
Yanni's
one?
got more questions.
So I guess what I'm struggling to understand is why is there like the arts and culture one where we're saying get further advice, but we've not had any of the advice on any of the others? Because you've got an additional one like the suburban regeneration, which we also have. I mean, I'm not against it. It's just I find it strange that one would be added, but the other one won't. I don't understand the logic behind it. Either we want advice for all the portfolios, or we don't get advice for half of them and only for the ones that haven't been allocated, which doesn't seem to make much sense.
But some of the
Aren't we? Maybe I've missed the point a wee bit. I sort of thought the whole idea was to make the council effectively more efficient and have them through committees. But if there are people with areas where they can add value in terms of portfolios, they will feed that through to council. So this, and that was going to be my question, so I probably should have gone before you. This isn't hard and fast in terms of it's locked in for good. This is about actually getting on and doing something now, and then testing it as we go. So it's not like we're going to get to the end of 3 years and nothing be changed like last term, where we're going to have the review mid-time. This will be, the staff will bring back some advice around what works and what doesn't, and if we need to tweak it, we will. Unless I've got something completely
You're right,
wrong.
and if
I
we need
don't think every council was aware that you were going to have a system of allocating portfolios, and also there were other portfolios like the arts and culture that was raised at the same time yesterday as the suburb region one that's not been included for today.
Right, so you would have had to been living under a rock.
Point
through
of
the
order,
campaign.
shouldn't the mayor be answering questions, or Mary rather than Sam? I find that quite
Well,
quite
Sam is
wrong.
answering the question that I was going to say, but one of the main reasons that we're doing this portfolio thing is to make things, as I said, a lot more streamlined. We've got a lot of committees and structures that are going alongside each other, and we want to stop a lot of the work for staff. I'm certainly not saying that things will stop. If there's a need for something going forward, we will create it going forward and we'll change it. This is not set in concrete. If something is fluid and we want to move it around a bit, we certainly will. And I appreciate all the feedback that I can get as we go forward. This is just a starting point.
10 is coming back to council.
Sorry, when what?
When item 10 is coming back to council.
The staff will aim to get that advice to councillors within the next fortnight.
And I've got a question on number 10 too, so just
Okay, so it's Tim. All done, Sam?
And just the only question I had was for the chief executive around the deputation. We had the deputation from the Living Wage Group, and in the terms of reference for a number of the committees, it is made explicit that we cannot delegate the remuneration and employment policy. But I just wanted to check what the process was around us if we wanted to adopt a policy around remuneration and employment, what the right process would be or resolution would be to get us to consider that.
You'd have to seek staff advice for that, Councillor Johansson.
Right.
If you wish to put an amendment to that effect, we can then do the staff advice.
Yeah.
Sam, are you done? Enough? Okay. Andre.
Thank you. Yeah, it was mentioned yesterday we'd need advice on 9 and 10. Am I right in understanding that advice has come through since yesterday on number 9 but not number 10?
Mary?
I can't answer that. So these are decisions that have been made and a recommendation and a decision made by the Mayor to establish the Suburban Generation Portfolio Committee with the proposed portfolio holder, so that's a Mayor's decision.
Okay, that's the decision I make. Yep.
Right. Thank you.
And Tim.
Yeah, thank you. With number 10, the arts and culture portfolio, it's such a diverse community, and even Creative New Zealand have missed a number of the key art areas, which is quite staggering really when you think it's a government, technically a government agency. So I'd really like the key there for number 10 for me, irrelevant of individuals around this table's view on it. I'd really like to get the staff at the coalface's view on it and the best way forward, because I think that's, I'm just clarifying, because, you know, everyone's got an opinion, but a lot of people aren't actually on the coalface. So I think it's absolutely essential to get the feedback from those organisations through our staff. So I'm just highlighting that.
Tyler?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a quick question, just to clarify here. With these portfolios, I appreciate that it's all a work in progress, which is fantastic. And there is a change, and I know there's going to be growing pains. I'm wondering if there could be some sort of actions related to that. Meaning, I think yesterday we were discussing about the potential of councillors expressing interest. But maybe we could get staff to provide portfolios and then councillors express their interest through that means. That way it's a lot more cleaner. And then there's set boundaries and portfolios and where the council could be looking at. That's just my thought.
So could I just clarify that question?
Would you-
Are you suggesting that in number 10, councillors may submit other areas alongside arts and culture that they would like some advice on the pros and cons of establishing this portfolio?
Across the board,
Yeah.
in every sector, and your thoughts on the feasibility of those portfolios.
So-
We'd love advice on that.
So it may delay that advice coming back if we get hundreds of suggestions. But if there's only a few suggestions, we could certainly get that back. But if we get a multitude of suggestions about portfolios, it will take us some time to actually review what that would be, what the implications or what the benefits of it would be.
I also appreciate Councillor Scandrett's thoughts on how broad arts and culture could be. And I know it's going to be work in progress on it. I know it's not going to take, one day. But I would really appreciate advice from staff on what they think about the portfolios and where we could be going, and then we provide our thoughts on that.
I go along with with what Mary said. We've got to be careful. We'll have a portfolio on changing the toilet paper in the toilet. We're not careful. And that every time we do this, staff have got a myriad of work that they've got to do. So we've just got to be a wee bit realistic. Sam.
Just to clarify, Mary, in terms of those portfolios, and that they would still sit under the first part of the Local Government Act, where the mayor has discretion to establish the committees.
Yes, yeah.
And the
So,
structure would be.
so the mayor doesn't have to only exercise his powers at the beginning of a triennial. He can exercise those powers under the 41A at any point.
No, I think that's useful because it just clarifies it's not hard and fast set in stone now. But if there are areas where it can be, that's useful. Thanks, Mary. Yeah.
Pauline?
Just going to the suburban regeneration portfolio, so all the other ones have got deputies and members. Are you intending to look at that today, or
No portfolio has deputies or members.
Portfolios don't have it.
The portfolio, not a committee.
But you'd want Celeste here. She's the lead on it.
right? Okay, no, that's good.
Lead, not chairman.
Yeah, no. But if we're going to talk about membership, etc., she would have to absolutely be leading that.
Tyrone.
Just to clarify, the portfolios are not committees or working groups. They are a single person who is a champion for something. If a working group is formed, that's a different process. So if there was a particular piece of work that a portfolio lead identified a working group had to be established for, that would be brought to council to establish a working group. So at the moment, they're just single portfolio leads or champions for a particular area.
And so to establish a working group could be done on a case-by-case basis with a beginning and end to that project and make it more efficient.
And I think the mayor identified that in his proposal or his decision as well, that working groups would be formed for limited life with a beginning and end and clear terms of reference.
So there was a good example of that in the last council where the housing working group was formed. It had 3 meetings, it had specific tasks, it completed the tasks and the working group was disbanded. Coastal, that's another good example.
Tyrone.
Just regarding point number 11, and this is to you, Mary. So what's the process through which the terms of reference are refined? Like, can you just step me quickly through the basic steps of that?
So
please?
we would look at the short brief that we have at the moment and review those and actually just check that against the review that's been done for Wellington, the Wellington review, to make sure that we don't fall into any of those traps or pitfalls. Potentially talk to other councils that have had portfolios to further define them. We would bring them back to councillors for discussion or circulate to councillors for discussion before they were actually set in concrete and put in place.
Sorry, just to follow up, Mr. Beard. So, and that'll happen relatively
quickly.
Cheers. Okay, thank you.
You know, all good? Everyone happy? Right, so now...
An amendment that Tyrone be given a portfolio of homelessness and Andre be given a portfolio of culture and arts and culture.
So I suggest you put that in...
maximum to number 10.
Number 10.
Okay. But as I was saying, Yanni, we don't want to have a
So
portfolio.
who did you put forward for arts and culture?
Andre. And it's an amendment.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's an amendment to number 9.
So we want to just do we want to take that as an amendment to establish?
Isn't there already an amendment
Yeah.
that's been put?
So leave number 9 alone. You're looking at putting what
When
you're
one's on the
suggesting into number 10. Is that right?
It's the establishment one. So you're establishing suburban regen, right? And this is also establishing a portfolio for arts and culture for Councillor Andre.
Point of order, Mr.
I'm
Mayor.
trying to avoid having this stuff going on and on. It's just going to increase
Could I, as a
Just point of order on this.
staff advice would be
There's an amendment on the
not
table.
to make this decision ad hoc. It wouldn't be
make
reflect
an
good
amendment
decision making, which is your expectation under the Local Government Act, to make this ad hoc without advice and without consideration, particularly since you're getting advice back about this.
So I have got Jake.
I think
then Sam, I think.
what's bogged us down a little bit is the fact that we've established one and we're seeking advice on another. I think that was unhelpful. What may be better, I'm personally of the view that if we're electing champions to champion certain issues, every councillor gets to pick one, and if they want to champion something, that's fine. But in this instance, I think either we established arts and suburban regeneration, arts, culture and heritage, and homelessness, or we take advice on all of it. I'm leaning towards advice, but I think we have to treat all the same.
Councillor McClellan, that would be my advice to you. I think that's a very good point.
So you were saying roll 9 and 10 into each other?
Yes.
Decision making to get advice.
Okie dokie. Sam?
Just one point of clarity, Mary, if possible. Am I right in thinking, though, that the structures are set up at the recommendation of the Mayor? So his legislative ability is to determine the portfolios, the structures and the like?
He does have the ability to establish a committee or portfolio if he so wishes. In this instance, his amendments, he is making these amendments under Schedule 7 though, not under his... So he's made his initial decision, which has been reported to you.
Right.
Under Section 41A, but these amendments are being made under Schedule 7 of the Local Government Act.
Cool. Right, so we're at Pauline's amendment, I feel. Okay, so we have a mover and seconder for Pauline's, wherever it is.
There it is.
Yep, that one there. That Councillor McClellan be appointed as to the Chief Executive Performance Committee. I have a mover and seconder. All those in favour?
Is anyone going to speak on it? Is she going to speak to Amendment Y or?
I would have spoken on it if I'd wanted to. I don't think I need to.
All right, well, we have
very
debate.
quickly.
Yeah, far away. Yep.
Do you want to, Pauline?
No? Oh, well, I might reserve my right to close then.
Okay.
Oh, you can't close an amendment.
You don't get a right to
Oh,
reply.
amendment.
But you can reserve your right to speak later. Yeah, later. Yeah.
Well, can I quickly then speak on it? I won't muck about.
Yes.
Yeah, look, I'll vote against this. Nothing against Jake or any of the people at all. It's just that I think the Mayor's exercised his powers under Section 71A of the Act, and that's to have a line in the sand. He's sat through a series of meetings with every single councillor around the table, and I can't begin to imagine how difficult that is to try and collate the hopes and aspirations and skills of all of these members in a workable structure that he believes is going to be best placed to take the city forward. So I think, in the spirit of collaboration, working together, that I'm going to back the Mayor's recommendations and stop trying to essentially build, a horse by committee, because I think, as we all know, the proverbial of that is that you end up with a camel. So there is a line in the sand. I'm prepared to back that. And I think, as we've discussed, this is a start point. If things work, then we can, then that's great. But there will be places to review it and to tinker with it, and I'm really comfortable with that. So it's certainly not set in stone, but I think that it's a start point, and the Mayor's made his recommendations, and I want to give effect to that, because I think it's, I think it does undermine it to start chipping and hacking into it at this point.
It's interesting that Councillor James Goff, who invited Council Chief Executive Dawn Baxendale to a dinner with himself, mayoral candidate Phil Major and Sam MacDonald, are creating a CE Performance Committee with them on it, plus our Deputy Mayor, Councillor Cotter. And I feel that that is clearly a biased grouping of people to be on a CE Performance Committee, and I think we should have at least Councillor McCullen there, and in fact I actually believe we should have one more person to make it a even grouping. So I absolutely support the amendment that Pauline has made.
I'll just speak in support of the amendment. There are many good qualities that our Mayor has, and one of the things I particularly like is his pragmatism and ability to think on the fly and do things a little bit differently. So I think that is well within his kind of kaupapa to make changes like that, and I think that is definitely something that that fills style, and that's why I support that motion.
Thank you, and actually I'm going to support everything that Tyrone has just said. I think this is not about sides. This is actually about the right decision, the right people, and the right balance to make very important decisions for the people of Christchurch through this. I'm going to support Pauline's. Thank you for saying what you did. I think it's totally logical, and I thank you for putting your hand up for it, because there's a lot of reading with it. There's a lot of information. You've got to be balanced, and yeah, I totally support it.
Kia ora, thank you. I'd just like to address Councillor Goff's point about it being the Mayor's prerogative, and under Local Government Act is to establish these things. But also under the Local Government Act, there's the democratic process whereby councillors also get to adjust things as we go, and it's a fundamental part of our democracy that the Mayor is one vote around the table, although they get to lead the decision making and those kind of things. And so there is absolutely nothing wrong with the elected council making adjustments to things where they want to make some improvements. So.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Councillor Stevens there with his comments. Mayor Major is a very pragmatic leader, and I will certainly be supporting the extra member and Jake on this.
Yeah, I think those are very, very valid points, and we're not asking for I have to say this, we're not asking for a major alteration here, yeah, I know, and there's plenty more to come. So it's a tweak to this committee, but I think that the committee will sit in a more balanced way. It's only 5 members. It's not a clunky committee. I think it'll still be a really well-oiled machine that'll work very well together. So that's why I've moved that. So thanks for your support.
That may have just carried.
So in relation to amendment, sorry, yeah, in relation to 9 and 10,
yes,
there was a recommendation from.
Oh, so that's another
amendment.
A
potential, if yourself and Tim are comfortable with merging those two things together into 10.
You happy with merging 9 and 10 together?
So that just becomes part of the substantive.
Yep. And that would be for homelessness, arts and culture, and suburban regeneration.
Cool. Can you seal that up there? Okay. So now, do I now do debate on the whole thing, or not?
Yes.
Yes. Or do we just? Can we just? I think we're all sort of heading down the right track. You what? It's Christmas. It's Christmas soon. Right, far away.
So on the substantive, again, I'm completely acknowledging the Mayor's desire for a really efficient and effective council where we don't duplicate work and we don't overload staff with just the paperwork of getting meetings organised, that kind of stuff. And I think that's a really good plan. I do, however, have a concern about the use of portfolios due to the Wellington experience. And my key concern is one thing that came up in that one is that they could have been used as a tool to put officers under pressure to change their advice to the council. So portfolio holders have additional access to staff and those kind of things, and I think that's an issue we have to keep an eye on. There's overlapping responsibilities. Councillors were inadequately resourced to actually fulfil their portfolio responsibilities, so we need to look at resourcing. It can create unnecessary work and act against the development of a meaningful, holistic council work program, and that's my key bugbear here. One of the things it led to is that councillors said, that's okay, I don't need to be over the issues for the city because that's someone else's responsibility. And a key takeaway here, a number of councillors identified a benefit of the portfolio system as meaning they did not need to be across the full range of council's activities and issues. This mindset is concerning and, in fact, contrary to the collective nature of council decision making and the collective responsibility that follows. It is, in fact, a negative of the system. My concern is that people will say, don't need to know about youth, Tyler's got that. Don't need to worry about climate change, Sarah's got that. And so that's something I think we really need to be aware of. It's one of the reasons I think we need good reporting, because none of us can afford to dismiss climate change and not be all over the issues, the facts, how it's going to impact Christchurch, the City Council and the wider community. And so that's a concern I have. We'll work with Mary to make sure that those kind of things are mitigated as far as we can, get regular reporting in and some resourcing, and I hope they go really well, because it is an area I'm passionate about.
I hope so too, because it's a new system, and if we can work together and make it, like, there will be spots which might be a bit light, but if we can keep on top of that and make it go. Tyler.
Kia ora, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to just be noted about the associated risk with having a portfolio, and my hesitancy in picking up the responsibilities of being the champion of that. Not that I don't want it, not that I'm against it. It's just that I want it to be noted that if, for example, which is a major issue right now, is youth crime, and it's not being addressed by council, then I feel like the onus falls on me as a youth portfolio holder. And it's something that I want to be wary of, and also note to the council that the responsibility can be looked to be falling on me and also the council. I just want it to just be communicated.
Fair comment. Mark?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hear what Tyler's saying there about taking on responsibility, but with these portfolios, I'm hoping that I'm reading this right, that we've all still got the ability to feed into that area of portfolio interest, because there's a number of those portfolios that I'm really quite keen on being involved with. So, by all means, liaise with our wider council and bring us all into that process, please.
Timothy.
Thank you. Look, we've got to start off positively and with the right attitude, and it's a real shame that some around the table are saying, oh, no, look, there could be problems. There will be a lot of problems, there will be ironing out, but if we've got the right attitude, none of us are an island. We've got to look after each other for the betterment of Christchurch. And to sit here and if ever you need a hand, whether it's I'm part of the portfolio or not, I'm always here, and I'm sure your colleagues are too. It's about getting for the city. In the last council and the two previous, there were winners and losers, and I guess some who aren't winners, if you want to put it that way, and some that are, things change. I'm going to be really positive. None of us can be experts in anything. No, literally we can't. We've got to learn. I think with solid support in the committees and the portfolios, and that's spreading down and trying to cross-pollinate into those interest areas, into portfolios, that can really work those, if you like, a pyramid structure, and then cross over and keep good contact. Good reporting, as Sarah said, whether it's quarterly or 6 monthly or whatever, that will find itself, and some will need to report more often than others. I'm presuming that the health, safety and wellbeing will be a quarterly report, but that really depends on how we're going, because when I set that up, I'll be talking to you as well what you need, but also, more importantly, what the staff need to deliver to you. So I'm really positive on this. I'm looking forward to it, looking forward to working with everyone positively. Cheers.
Thank you, Tim. The one thing is that we must always remember we're all in this together for the good of Christchurch, and I'd hate to see someone coming in with a problem and say zeroing in on Tyler, saying, "Oh, this is all your problem. Everyone else run away," because that would really disappoint me. Because we all should be helping each other. So that's very important in my view. Yeah. Victoria.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Reiterating what Tim has said there and what you've just repeated there, Mr. Mayor, about all working together positively as one. I'd like to thank Sarah for raising and sharing that information about the Wellington report, because I wasn't overly familiar with that, and likewise I share your concerns around that as you've mentioned them, but I'd like to think that with the appropriate reporting in place on a regular basis, that should be able to mitigate the risk. Prior to coming into council, one of the things that actually put me off putting my name in was the horror stories that I'd heard about the extreme workloads. So I understand the rationale in terms of trying to reduce some of that. and I'd like to hope that this is going to work for us. So thank you for sharing that information, and I'm looking forward and that this is going to work.
You're right in what you say. I was talking to a person who had been a first-time councillor 2 or 3 times ago, and he said he went mad when he got in because he tried to fix the world, and he went on every committee that he could ever go on and absolutely burned himself out. And you're not going to get any thanks for that, So
Likewise, I think that's a real issue, and we have to be very mindful
realistic.
of that.
Yeah, we've all got a lot of life to lead as well. James.
Yeah, look, I'll be brief on this, but I just want to say that I am familiar with the Winder report. I've read it, and it's actually a really interesting report, and there are pros and cons with the portfolio structure. And I think, my objective with this is to take the best of what works and leave what doesn't. So using the learnings from others, I think, will be a beneficial way of navigating that. And look, in the past, the committee structure that we've had, let's be honest, hadn't actually worked so well either. We had committees where staff were genuinely struggling to find items to fill that, and that's not a good use of anyone's time. So I think the portfolio structure is more of a way for individuals with a particular skill set or area of interest to take that lead. It will be what they make of it. It doesn't mean that we start off perfectly, because I think there is an element of building the aeroplane as we fly, and we'll do that collaboratively and together, and I think we'll get some good outcomes from that. But we've got to start somewhere, and I think this is a good start point. And the other thing too, which we mentioned earlier, is that we will genuinely be accountable around how this is working, what works, what doesn't work, and we can tweak that from there. So I think that this is something that I'm keen to give a go to. So I'm fully supportive of the recommendations there. Thanks.
Thank Melanie. Oh, sorry, Jan. Yep. Go, Mel.
All right, great. I'm not sure if excited is the right word, or that I'm looking forward to it, but I am willing to take the position of Deputy Chair of the Finance Committee.
It'll be great.
As well as attend Te Hononga when the Chair of Finance and Performance Committee is unable to attend. I take heart in the 2-day induction that we had, where we did all agree to work together. But it was a bit disappointing that the committee structure we didn't see before it went public, because I think we could have maybe avoided some of this discussion today. And I do feel that the committees were not necessarily representative of council, and I know that was the case before, but I was a new councillor and didn't, take too much interest in the formation of them, I have to say, the first time round. But we have made some, I think, improvements through discussion both yesterday and through today. So I think that is good. And I do have concerns, though, about some of the committees, because I wasn't aware, as I said before, about the Te Pai Pakari or the Multicultural Committee not continuing, and I understand that. But I would have liked to have heard that those communities had been discussed, or had been talked with first before this committee structure was put forward, because those committees give those communities mana. It shows that council values them. It gives them official channels where what's discussed is recorded in council business, and I find that important, even if the agendas are light and there are improvements that could be made and other things that could be done, especially with the youth committee. I think that the youth action plan is something that really should be followed through with, that we probably didn't do so well last term. So I'm pleased we're looking at advice on those things, and also support the comments about portfolios and what Councillor Peters talked about with that. So I will support this today.
Thank you, Yanni.
Yeah, thank you. I think the reality for those of us who have been around for a few years is that we see different systems get established after each election, and you start to get into a position where you see the same cycle go around, from committees to one council meeting a week, or several a month, and then it changes. So there has been times in the past where council has looked at portfolios, has looked at having mainly the council meeting being all the decision making, but from my experience and personal preference, I do favour a form of committees, and not having committees of the whole, but actually having groups of people focused on certain issues that can focus on the work program in terms of the council. But I appreciate that we've got a new mayor and that they have powers in terms of the structure that they would like. And, you know, I think we do need to be open-minded to working constructively as a team. And I hate to hear the comment around there'll be winners and losers. I actually think we should all be trying to work together for the success of everyone in the city and everyone around this table, including our staff and our community board. So I'm really open-minded to how we progress, recognising that I have seen some of these structures be reinvented previously, and I just, you know, have some words of caution around the proposals. But, you know, let's try and work together and make sure that everyone's got a role to contribute. And I think that will be what will set us apart, is that we're all equally sharing the workload. We have a massive challenge ahead. We've got some of the lowest levels of satisfaction in our recent modern history for this council, and we've got huge challenges around roads and footpaths and doing the basics, which I'd really like to see this council have a very strong focus on getting on top of. And, you know, there's nothing really in here that addresses that, but I do signal that for this term, I think one of the major challenges for council is to get on top of our basics, to improve our maintenance and our renewals of our streets, footpaths, parks, and address issues like flooding. And I hope that as we have further discussions around how we might work together, that we can think of what we can do. And if you want any evidence of that concern, you only need to read the following two reports, that we don't even have an assessment of our footpath condition, and yet we're spending more money than we have to trying to fix things. So, but I'm happy to support what's being put forward today, on the understanding that we can work together to improve it if things aren't working or if things can be made better, understanding that everyone has a role to contribute. And I do think the other thing that's really important is we do look at ways to engage our communities, because sometimes when we just go to a full council meeting, it's hard for the community to interface with council around decisions that get made quite quickly, but doesn't give the community a lot of time to engage. So we also need to consider those processes.
Thank you, Yanni. Kelly?
Thank you. Nice to get an opportunity to speak last, after everybody present has had their go. I found it a really interesting discussion. Personally, I'm comfortable with portfolios. I can see what the Mayor's trying to do, but I'm really impressed by other councillors as a group. Some started out a wee bit cynical, but have kind of come to an agreement that this is a new council, a new day, a new attitude. I really appreciate what Councillor Scandrett said. You know, it's all about attitude, and you know, we've sort of gone the full circle in the last sort of half an hour or so discussing this. And I think if we remember back to those 2 days we spent together and the way we hoped and determined that we would behave moving forward, I feel like we've made a couple of decent steps. So I'd encourage you to continue to be positive in everything you do. It's really good to hear the different sides of the argument. Sarah, appreciate hearing that. I read about that too, and you know, I see central government uses portfolios, and I don't think they lose from that. So it's been a really interesting discussion, and I will support it.
Pauline and Andre.
Thank you. Just good debate, a good process today. I think we started off on a good foot, that we're all listening to each other respectfully. And just to be reminded that this is an iterative process, so as we develop and settle into our roles, there's opportunities for change and development if required. There is a concern for me that perhaps our 2 council meetings could become quite hefty. We may have to be prepared for some long days, but that will fold into the iterative process as well. So it's been a good debate today and a good process, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, for working on this and getting it.
And also, I think having longer council meetings may make us a wee bit more efficient.
So there's a method in your madness.
The cunning plan.
We'll put those at the start. Andre.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd just like to point out that there's some really important portfolios in here, and Central City revitalisation is absolutely one of them. And some of the most talked about issues in the Central City is homelessness. It is young people. These people exist. They always have. and a central city they always will. It is also an issue of arts and culture that most of our live music venues that have opened since the earthquakes have had to shut their doors, which doesn't help for revitalising city centre. So I strongly believe that we cannot and will not truly revitalise our city centre without paying significant attention to homelessness, arts and culture, and giving a voice to our young people. Strong supporter of these portfolios. Thank you.
Very much. I'll just finish off. Portfolios are new, and we shouldn't be scared of something new. It's just a general sort of, I don't know about it. I was like that when I heard a thing called committees as a whole 3 years ago. I didn't know what the hell it was. But council will be looking at the key issues that Yanni's brought up, and because they're important going forward, and all of us. And I think we've gone round in it, like Pauline said, we've gone round in the circle, and we've got to where we are. Jake's in on the CE board, and I think it's a good decision by all of us in the end. So I'd like to put the motion out. Just remember that 9 and 10 are added together.
And it becomes 10.
Yeah, it becomes 10. There was Errol.
was deleted. And
Yeah, okay, cool. So I'd like to, nothing else, like to put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
All those against?
That's carried. You need to say it's carried.
That's carried, thank you. Let's start the way we mean to carry on.
Item 6 next.
Righto, now we're on there. Welcome, Peter, number 6.
Good morning.
Sorry to hold you up.
Mr. Mayor, when have we got morning tea scheduled?
No, we haven't got time.
Do we need to sort out morning tea? No?
Pete won't be long.
Okay. Look, just before we dive into the numbers, I just wanted to explain, mainly for the benefit of the new councillors, you get a little suite of reports here. You get an overview of the vital few performance statistics from me. Then you'll be hearing from Andrew in the Project Management Office about capital, and from the finance team about our financials. So they come as a little group of 3. The objective with mine is, this is not a communications report or a PR report. It's designed to give you an objective overview of where we're at against the vital few things we need to deliver. Sometimes that's good news and we should celebrate that. Sometimes it's not so good, and we generally work together to fix it. But that's the approach we take into this report. Speaking of celebrating, the first item there is levels of service, which are on track and in fact delivering about where they normally would during peacetime, if you like. That's actually something that can go by the board really easily, and I just want to flag that. Given COVID, given vacancies, given supply chain issues, given an extraordinary winter season, levels of service have actually been quite hard to maintain. The fact that where we normally would be without all of those things is actually just because the guys, the teams out there, the men and women involved, have really put their heads down over the last 6 months. In fact, the last 24 months. So while it's just a green light, it's actually a bit of a win, because it could easily be the opposite. And if you've flown recently or been involved with any external agencies, all you hear is things are a little bit broken, things are not joined up, your bags aren't going to be on the flight. That's everywhere, but it isn't here. So we're doing about as well as we would in normal times. Capital, not so good. That's below target, and for reasons you know about, and Andrew will expand upon in his PMO report. But look, this supply chain issue, inflationary pressures, these are not going away anytime soon. And that's something that Andrew will speak to. Capital planning for future years is probably a little bit more of a concern, in the sense that the planning needs to be in place to feed the delivery of capital. And we're probably a little bit lower there than we would like to be. Big future years, 25, 26, that's a long way out, that's always a stretch. But drawdowns for the coming year, probably a little lower than we would normally hope for. And again, that's something we can dig into and report back on. So just very quickly now, I won't spend long on the detail of the report, but levels of service largely affected by the lack of overseas visitors, which is not something we control. So that's areas like the art gallery. Parks having some struggles with the extraordinary winter season we've had, meaning that spring growth is a little bit Armageddon. Consent volumes are still up, despite changing economic conditions. And of course, leakage rates around water supply have been an issue for some time. Resident survey results, as you might remember, Councillor McDonald was particularly keen on this. 6 months ago, we asked all the heads of service to respond to you about what their results mean in the resident survey, what their interpretation of the drivers are, and what they're going to do to improve things going forward, or maintain them if they're already good. We're pulling that information from the heads of service again, and we'll come back to you at the end of November. I think it's the first meeting of Finance and Performance, with the overview of what all of those heads of service have come back with as a progress report. So we haven't forgotten, it's still on the books, and I know, Sam, you're particularly keen to see that resident survey progress update. So that's 30th of November, I believe, is the date, Finance and Performance. In terms of operational budget, we have a small surplus. It's more wafer thin than it looks, but we are still in the right place to be at this time of year. Capital is underspent for reasons related to capital delivery. Obviously, the two overlap. And looking ahead, there is still a gap between our forecast delivery and our planned budget for capital. And that's something that will be brought to you on the 9th as a briefing for the annual plan. So you'll have some more detailed, more insight into what the future looks like for capital and what your options are as a council. So that's the overview of our sort of half dozen vital few. That, as I said, will be followed by the detailed capital and financial reports. But with your permission, Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to take any questions relating to that.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, very clearly articulated for us. Just on page 74, 4.5, and it's about the water supply leakage rates, and we know that this comes up every time. It's still sitting at 25%. What sort of remedial action suggestions are available?
Fortunately,
what does it mean?
Fortunately, we have the lovely Helen Beaumont here, and she can answer that for you a lot better than I can.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Cotter, you're aware that the primary piece of work is the water supply renewals and the mains renewals, and we have extra funding through the long-term plan for that, and we're driving that program across the city. The additional work that we're doing, though, is to focus on major leak repairs. Now, some major leaks are visible, and we can deploy our maintenance contractors and get out there and fix them. Some are not visible. And so that's the additional work we're doing with the smart water network monitoring to listen for those leaks, pinpoint them, and get to those leaks. So that work's begun out in Rauwhiti, and we're now looking to roll some of those sensors across other parts of the city.
Oh, that's really exciting. It's really good. So you're hoping that, when do you think that improvement will become noticeable?
Make a noticeable difference on that overall leakage rate? That will be years, I'm afraid, because the mains renewals works is the primary driver for improvement there.
And so is that leakage rate going to have an effect on any decision on our application for a chlorine exemption?
We're yet to see that. Certainly the leakage rate can be used as a proxy for network condition, and network condition is one of the concerns in terms of running a water supply with no residual chlorine. So maybe. We're yet to see what the criteria are and how they will evaluate them for those chlorine exemption applications.
Okay, so when you say years before the leakage rate percentage comes down noticeably, but would we be able to see some movement in the next year, or still can't say?
Pretty hard to say.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, we are. And quite large ones? Some of them are large, yes. And been there for a long time, maybe? Potentially. It's a sort of a good thing and a bad thing. It's the free draining gravels that underlie the city, so leaks can be invisible, as many householders have found since we've had the focus on household water use as well. So it's interesting to note that residential water use, so in the
in the wintertime has gone down between 10 and 12% household water use. So that baseline water use is almost certainly due to leaks on the private side being fixed. And we have had some significant leaks reported and fixed through that work.
Yeah, thank you. Just on page 85, I was quite surprised to learn that we haven't done any condition assessment for footpaths since 2007 because we don't have the funding for it. And I would have thought that's one of the most basic things that a council should be focused on. So I was just kind of interested to know what the cost is of doing the condition assessment for footpaths. And if we don't know the condition of the footpaths, how are we prioritising where we fix the footpaths that are broken or in bad condition?
Can I jump in? Probably walked in at a good time. In terms of costs, we're going to put something up in the annual plan. I can't remember what the figure is right now, but we are putting something up in this year's annual plan for that kind of surveying of the footpaths. Sorry, what was the second part of the question?
Oh, so sorry, just on that cost thing though. I guess post the earthquake, I would have thought we would have had the most assessed city in the world. We've had presentations repeatedly from asset managers. We've had a whole department of council that's been focused on it. How is it that we just suddenly stopped doing it?
I don't know is the honest answer. At the moment, we're doing it through complaints and what the maintenance teams are picking up as they go around.
Right. Okay.
Could I just refer to the remedial action that's been supplied as a comment on this, that funds have been secured and 1,000 footpaths have been contracted with suppliers. So there are steps forward here. I'll let Lynette know that this is a question after we spoke earlier, and obviously she's not available today, but there will be a more detailed response on that. But I think it's fair to say that the statement that funds have been secured and 1,000 footpaths have been contracted with suppliers is at least a step in the right direction there.
But
we need to know what Lynette's response is, I think.
Yeah, but that's to fix ones that we know are broken. That's not to do the condition assessment. What you're saying is in the annual plan, we've got a funding application to get operational funds to actually assess our footpaths because we currently don't have money to do that.
Yeah.
Right.
The second part of that sentence is quite clear as well, though, Peter.
Yes.
Whereby the University of Canterbury have been engaged to actually use state-of-the-art technology to assess the condition of our footpaths, and I think that's important to reiterate.
So I'd like Lynette to have the opportunity to expand on that response so that we really know what's actually going on in this space.
Right. And can I ask, we've obviously got also concern in the target above that around the maintaining the roadway condition to an appropriate national standard. Do we have the same issue with our carriageways? Do we know what the assessment is around the roads in terms of condition, in terms of what should be renewed versus what should be maintained? And yeah, we do.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
So we could get a prioritised list of curb and channel renewals.
Yeah.
Based on condition.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know. And just I wondered whether we needed to talk to smart cities around if the University of Canterbury I think it's great you're working with them to do things more efficiently. It sounds like what we've done with some of the tree canopy stuff. But I guess given that we've got a whole smart cities program, can we ensure that they're kind of connected up?
I'll have to ask Lynette what she's doing in that space. There may be work already in place that I just don't know about.
Okay, thank you.
Peter, sorry, this thing that the University of Canterbury is being engaged to do, can someone send me a wee story on what it actually is going to do?
Yeah, look, as I said, I've given Lynette a heads up that we need a bit of a report on this to just unpack what is behind those comments there.
Yeah.
And that would include the university stuff.
Because I'm just answering your question, Yanni, I've put in, there is a paper coming back to us before Christmas on starting up this roving footpath crew that I'm on about. We need people that are standing at the start of it and walking along, not waiting for people to ring up and complain. We need to be proactive rather than reactive. So that's coming back to us in before Christmas.
And the other idea that's been put forward has to be to put little cameras on our trucks, our rubbish collection trucks that go around every street in the city to record condition, which seems a very sensible and cost-effective way to do it. So I think getting a report back or a memo back or maybe even a briefing, because I still want to understand how we stopped doing the assessment. I was just shocked to read that.
Well, yeah, one thing, the way I look at it, we can have all the cameras and we can have all, and I'm not decrying anything that the University of Canterbury is doing, we can have all that stuff, but you can't beat having a group of people walking down a footpath saying, that's crook, that's good, leave that, do that. And then it's solved. So that's what I'm really pushing for.
So to be clear to both to the mayor and the councillor, who have slightly different approaches, we are bringing a report before Christmas that will be staff advice about how to get to the outcome you wish to achieve, which is improve footpaths, and the best possible options in which to do that.
I mean, the other concern I've got is that, like, we've had streets in my ward now that we've had maintenance renewal budgets spent when they actually should have been a capital renewal, and it's not efficient. We've wasted money. And my understanding is we've made the road condition worse than what it was before we did the maintenance. So, you know, like I'm really concerned at our asset understanding of condition and what's actually required to fix it. And I'm concerned that we're wasting money in the meantime by trying to rush in and do all these things at a maintenance level when things should actually properly be renewed. So
Couldn't agree more.
maybe that could be put into that report.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll make sure my general manager covers that.
Thank you. Just a couple of things. Firstly, the wording and the remedial action. The University of Canterbury has been engaged to develop a state-of-the-art technology. Universities love developing things because they've got students, and that's what they do. I'd be really interested to know if our staff have actually, if there is a program somewhere in the world that is specifically for this, because there must be other cities in the world that have these issues, because you know, this is what universities do. They develop new technology, and it may be out there already. So I'm concerned about that. So it'd be really good to hear something back on that, because I don't want to pay an organisation to reinvent a wheel that's been used a dozen times somewhere else. We got a seminar in our community board some time ago about the new processes and technologies and products being used to fix, better fix footpaths and roads. I'd like to see how that's connecting in with this, because that was an outstanding presentation by our staff and what they could achieve with the new products. So I'd like to see that lining in here, because I agree with the mayor to put cameras on trucks as though doing one job can help, but you can't actually beat walking in and having a look and seeing the issues that are affecting. And it's, if you're healthy and skipping along and you can walk 500 yards to a
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt. I'm just wondering.
You just did, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Being polite.
Would you like to interrupt, Sam?
No, I was just wondering because these will come to our finance committee. I was thinking maybe we have an offline chat about some other stuff and see if we can pull something through in the reporting as well. Yeah, that'd be useful. Thanks.
All right. Okay. Just up here now, aren't we?
Yeah, no further.
Okay, no.
Pauline's happy to move.
No further questions. Pauline has nicely moved it. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Mark. Is there any debate? Thank you very much. I'd like to put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. That's 2 in a row.
Thank you.
On a roll. Don't.
Jinx it. It's only your first meeting.
Yeah.
Well, you might want to say no just to see what happens.
All right.
Oh, would you like to take the tea break?
Oh, yes. We're going to have a wee tea break for, I don't know, 20 past. That do?
10 minutes.
Thank you very much.
No.
Performance report. So, welcome and fire away.
Thank you, Phil. Kia ora. Pleased to present the first report for the year. It's a quarterly report to the end of September. I just want to outline a few changes that we've made to the report, I guess for the returnee councillors, but it'll also be of interest to the new councillors as well. So we've put a bit of a sharper focus on the, we used to have the top 20 lists. What we've done is refined them to give a sharper focus across each service area. So we vary the tops from 5 to 10, and we've given a bit more granularity. For example, around transport, we've split it up into the activity areas of safety, environment, access, and in water, instead of just doing top 20, we've gone top 10 across each of wastewater, water supply, and stormwater. We've also pulled out an important program, the Otakaro Avon River Corridor, OARC, in there as well. And typically the lower threshold is kind of around about $0.5 to $1 million, depending on which list you're in. So it gives you a little bit more information across those particular areas. I've also revised the watch list that accompanies the report. We've removed some projects that were completed and added some additional ones in, and we've taken a view on that around sort of scale, significance, dollar value, or program criticality. So there's a new watch list in there. We've removed a bit of noise with the additional watch lists that we previously had to avoid repetition, and as I said, we've got more detail in the front end report and the cover report. Also put a bit of commentary in there on external funding sources to give a better view of that. So we're always looking to improve the report for your information and provide it at the right level. In terms of performance, as Peter alluded to, the risks evident through the economic environment we live in are still there. They remain challenging and certainly providing sort of cost pressures. We're seeing that through some of the change management stuff as things go to market, and also supply chain issues. Also, some of the other challenges around just consents as well, but we've it's a bit of a small breakthrough there with 3 Waters, which I'll talk to in a minute. So yeah, with when I reported, COVID was looking pretty good. Now we're seeing COVID increasing a little bit locally, and of course some of the instability in the sort of geopolitical arena is exacerbating some of those cost pressure and supply chain issues. So to the numbers, the core infrastructure reported for September is we've got 2 numbers that I just want to speak to. The first set of numbers show 94% across the Christchurch City Council capital or core infrastructure, 94% against the budget for the year based on the forecast. The Program Management Office takes a further view of that. So that's the 94% is an aggregation of all the project managers who report into the project management system. We take a bit of a program level view. We use our judgment, past history, track record, and a sort of a balanced approach across the program, and it's our view that it would be closer to the end of year result of 83% performance against the budget. So we have a lower figure of 390 million as opposed to 437 as currently forecast. And that's one of the advantages of the PMO, is to be able to disaggregate it and see it as a whole across the program. Just to help you navigate the report with the horizontal bar charts that show against budget, the dark green lines show the dollars actual spent. The percentage figure that's mentioned is the percentage against the budget for the year, so that can be greater than 100%. If it's greater than 100%, we'd be looking to do bringbacks. I talked about bringbacks at the briefing. If it's less than 100%, you'll see a yellow line. That means the forecast is for some carry forward. So it just might help you navigate through that graph. And where a project has in the body of the report a little plus sign, it means it's got more detail in the watch list that we've included. So that's a brief outline, Phil. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a point I've noted in some of this commentary that you've provided, with Kiwi Rail being perhaps a little bit slower than we would like in the number of projects. What's the relationship like with Kiwi Rail? Is that something that's really getting in the way?
Yeah, I can speak to that. I know there's been some high-level meetings with Kiwi Rail. Jane will speak to it. I know Dawn's met with...
Things don't seem to come to anything, that's the problem.
We are hopeful that this one will, though, aren't we, Jane?
Yeah. Yeah, so we've made quite significant progress with that relationship. They've got a big program as well, big expensive program around the country, and so they're under as much pressure as we are in a lot of our capital and their capital delivery. So yeah, we're pretty confident that we've got the relationship on the right track.
Good.
Sorry, Pam?
Sorry, to add to that, we are also on site with some of the key rail bits now. So that I'd say that's sort of
yes.
An example that relationship is improving, that it's not just talk anymore.
So a couple of our projects that were stalled have now been unlocked and we're progressing.
Excellent. I'm pleased to hear that, because Kiwi Rail relationship is one of those ones which I've heard a lot about at community board level, and I would really like to see us as a council being able to work.
It certainly feels much more positive from the relationship I'm having with them. Yeah.
Excellent.
And just to add to that, we have done a specific memorandum of understanding with real specific things in there of expectations of what each party needs to deliver. So we can hold each other to account as we move through.
Excellent, thank you.
Oh, sorry. Sarah.
Thanks. I'm just noticed something that pops up both in Three Waters and in transport is staffing, vacancies, recruitment, retention, those kind of issues. And how are we managing those in a way that we can make sure that the staff that are still left behind aren't completely overworked, but B, so that we can actually deliver the program in time?
I'll speak to that, and Helen may want to add something. So we have had a challenging year with recruitment and staff retention. I think that's a national issue across a lot of sectors, not just the local government and the engineering sector. So we've spent quite a lot of time investing with our people, supporting them through what has been quite a stressful year. We're finding at the moment that the market is improving in terms of our recruitment, so we are recruiting a lot easier than we have previously earlier in the year. Obviously there's uncertainties around water, which doesn't help, but I think that the issues that we had are looking to go away around recruitment, but I think that the pressure on staff is a real issue, so there is a lot of pressure for us to deliver more, and so as managers, we're trying to manage that and manage expectations, and I guess manage expectations around this table as well, in terms of what's actually possible. So I know that our staff would like to deliver more and quicker, but the reality is we are limited on the resources that we have.
Yeah, but with additional resources, if we're able to fill those vacancies, then we can deliver what we say we're going to.
Well, we can deliver the program that we've agreed, but
that's right.
Speeding it up would be
tough.
Too much of a challenge. I mean, people are tired as well, so it's not just having the people at the desks. People are really tired.
Yeah.
I think you also have to add in, Councillor Templeton, the issue of the private sector as well, and because obviously we contract to get this stuff delivered,
that's right,
and the market isn't also able to do additionality as well.
Yeah, thanks.
I was talking to a mayoral forum just the other day, 2 days ago. No, it wasn't. Just you keep. I'd like to see if Yanni wanted to say anything. No, he did. He put his hand up.
Yeah, thank you. So I was just concerned to read on page 97 that a report to council will be submitted once estimated final dates and costs are known for the Hornby Centre. So are you able just to elaborate why we'd be getting another report on that, given we've already approved the budget?
I think there's a report scheduled. Is there? Can someone help me with that? Is Mary here? Yeah, I think there's Mary. The
you about that would be significant.
Sorry, is that because something's happened with the costs?
Yes, there are issues of costs, but they can find substitutions at the moment.
The substitutions out of other council projects?
Perhaps it's best to consider that when you have the information, because I haven't got it fully in front of me, the details of it at the moment. I could find it, but it would be a delay.
Right.
But, so it is coming, it is scheduled for a briefing within the next fortnight, I think.
Okay, I'm just concerned that we've already put additional resource into that project, and there's other projects that we value engineered to keep within budget. So when do we get a chance to discuss that? We're going to get, like, things aren't going to be made that are irreversible and we're just going to be told. We'll have a chance to look at what the options are.
Within the next fortnight for that.
Sorry, I'm trying to understand if irreversible decisions are going to be made ahead of that briefing and whether we'll get a report on what the options are.
Yes, yes. My understanding is the briefing will come to you, and then a decision will be made. Or at the time that the briefing comes to you, the decision will not be irreversible. The project has. Well, actually, I don't want to go into detail with it. There are escalations in the costs associated with groundwork design. So it's best that you get the full technical people there, both on the recreation and sports side and the capital project manager, rather than me trying to give you details of it now, or else wait a minute while I get the report.
Right, okay. And then I just wanted to check on the Performing Arts Precinct. Has the contract been awarded, and when will that be announced?
The final stage. Get some certainty around costing, get the costs down. There's been a series of value engineering exercises with the Court Theatre and the project team and the contractor. So we are expecting, it's very, very close. So we're expecting that documentation to be able to be signed off. And as you know, the CE has the delegations to do that. We're expecting that to be done this week, if not next week.
Right, okay. And I just wondered, just the final set of questions from me is around the craft projects. I was just wondering whether staff, or whether we could have a resolution to, I've proposed an amendment, but also if we should add those to the watch list so we can get visibility of them around how they're tracking versus expected timeframes. I'm just concerned that we don't seem to have a benchmark for delivery, and that they're taking a lot longer than some of us would have liked. And I'm struggling to understand, I guess, why projects that we signed off ahead of other ones, like Richmond was signed off 18th of March, Linwood Woolston 13th of April 2022, are still not being consulted on, still not being engaged with the community on, and have very long timeframes for delivery, when there's other projects that were approved in the annual plan that are already out for consultation. That was approved in, July.
So if I can just respond to that, and Jacob will add possibly a little bit more detail. So some projects are more complex than others around the design. So we, again, just going back to, we've got, limited resource, so we do put our resource into where the priorities are, but there are some projects are a lot more complex around how you design them. We do have to go out to consultation on all of our craft projects. Now that we've finally got approval from the community boards that happened at the end of last term for all the projects, we've now got the whole program now in place, ready to go. So what the team's doing at the moment is looking at across the whole program. We're obviously delivering and continuing with projects as they're ready to go, and we're constructing as soon as we can. But we're now looking across the whole craft program to make sure that we can get some efficiencies around joining projects together where it makes sense. We're doing the design work and doing the consultation that's going to roll out over the next next calendar year, 2023. And we will be constructing as quickly as we can for all those projects, bearing in mind that we actually want to get the most efficient delivery as well. So it's quite complex. I do note that the member has put up a proposed amendment asking us to report back to the next Finance and Performance Committee. That would be a stretch for the team. I don't think I don't think we'll be able to deliver on that request. It's not that far away. It's only on the 30th, that committee. And the team is doing a lot of work around looking at the program now and making sure that we've got the timeline sorted. We're also looking at the craft program alongside all the other transport work that we're doing for the annual plan consideration. So we're looking across our whole program. The craft work is a priority, so that's sort of being set within the context of what else we're looking to deliver. But we do need to look at across the whole program in terms of advice that we're going to come back to you with in terms of the annual plan. The craft work does sit alongside everything else that we're doing as well.
So, but
Councillor Johansson, just in terms of your last point, could the craft work be put on the watch list? I don't think that's an unreasonable request, and we'd be happy to be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be really helpful. What I still don't quite understand is, given that projects were agreed to in the 13th of April or the 18th of March, why have they not progressed? Did we wait for all the?
No, we have.
Did we wait for all the community boards to sign off on all the craft projects before we looked at delivery?
No, we have been progressing and doing design and doing consultation. So some of the projects are being going out to market now for delivery, for construction. So we do have a sort of a rolling program. So some projects we're about to do some consultation on, and some projects that were approved latish in this year are now at the design stage. So we haven't been waiting for the whole program to be approved. Right. We have been progressing as they have come through that process. But as I said, some of these projects are more complex than others, and so sometimes the design takes a little bit longer.
I'm just like, I mean, if staff can't feel like they can fulfill that amendment, but this isn't the first time we've made this request. I'm just really concerned that we do get some sense of how we can accelerate this, what was supposed to be an accelerated program. And I appreciate you doing work around the annual plan, but there's also projects that are happening now that have been prioritised that have leapfrogged these ones. So I think we need, at a governance level, to understand if we wanted you to speed up the craft work, what is it that you require to get that done?
So I suggest, Councillor Johansson, that we take this off board and we do a specific briefing on both the whole total position on transport and how craft fits within that. Yeah. And clearly this will be a discussion all the way through the annual plan work as well.
Sorry, does that mean we have to wait till the middle of next year before we make that decision?
No, not in relation to, we can be briefing you in terms of what the workload looks like for the transport team and how the craft work is actually being delivered. I will remind you that our head of transport and waste did come and brief members in September, I think it was, wasn't it, Jane? Specifically about the craft programme and answered questions at the time.
Yeah, but we asked for it to be accelerated and we didn't get how we can accelerate it. And that's the outstanding piece of information that we've never had. We've just been left to the mercy of the system, which, for some of us, we feel like it's not delivering because there's other projects that are newer that are getting better progress than the craft ones.
So Jane will deal with that when she comes and does the briefing.
And I suggest that probably is the conversation you have in the annual plan process, because to accelerate the craft, we will have to look at across the rest of the program as well. We are dealing with limited resource.
If you can't do the next F&P meeting, which is the one that you could do, the one in December, is there one in December?
F&P, no.
My question? I've got a question. I'll go before you. Jane, can we substitute craft upcoming work and put craft work in there?
So
stuff that's on budget that hasn't started yet, can we push that out and throw craft work in there to spend the money as fast as we can?
So I don't want to give you a response to that just off the top of my head. I think we just need to be really sensible about how we're programming this bearing in mind we've got a number of stages to go through with all these projects. We've got to, get the approvals. We've got that now. We've got to do design. We have to do engagement, and then we have to go to the market and construct. So it's it's quite a complex program. We will come back with more information about that though when we come back and brief you.
But I remember probably only 1 year into my term, the previous head of transport getting told off that the third letter meant A for acceleration, and why had he not spent any of it? And that's probably 2 years ago. And so I listen to what you're saying, how you're struggling to find people to do the job because everyone's busy. But I'm just wondering, are we better to put some of our stuff, the money that our ratepayers are paying for, to one side and use this craft money up as fast as we can?
I'm not sure if I totally understand the question, but we've got a big program, so it's not just about spending the money. It's actually about delivering the different services across the city. So when you make a decision around prioritisation, if you want to slow other projects down to accelerate the craft projects or any other project, you do need to look at the outcomes that you're trying to deliver from all of this. So it's not just a matter of thinking about delivering a faster program.
Yeah, but
you've got to look at the round.
If we've got X number of roading contractors to do the work, X number of roading contractors to do the work, and they're all very busy, can we help the situation by not making them busy on our budgeted stuff and use
Mostly our constraint isn't the contractors. Our constraint is more in the design space.
Okay, thank you.
And so that tends to be where we're getting caught up. And then obviously you've got to do that, then the consultation, then the detailed design before you can go to construct. So there's quite a long process simply to get a contractor on board. For craft, we do actually have a contractor on board. That's the point. We've already tendered this. There's someone ready to go. And so some of these don't need consultation. Some of the bits of craft don't need consultation, so they can be done fairly quickly now.
So is it
but a lot more of the programme than we expected turned out to be in projects that needed consultation. So there's a lot more of it that's tied up in that really long design process.
So, Mayor, we have our transport briefing at the end of November. Jane, ensure that the specific aspects that are being raised by the Mayor and elected members are covered off in that briefing, so it answers all of the questions, please.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Get it delivered quicker.
Yes, and the solutions will be the trade-offs, but it won't be right down to the nth degree because that will be an annual plan process.
Sorry, Pauline. Yeah.
I think I've got three.
Right.
So the first two are on page 112. One of them's the Christchurch Northern Corridor downstream of fixed. Wondering why the 31% has been deferred. If you haven't got an answer to that, a memo will be fine. The downstream effects.
Yeah, sorry, I haven't. What page is it on?
1112.
1112, sorry.
Or 24.
Where does it say? 31%. 31%, okay.
Closed.
I mean, on the downstream effects, there are two streets, which are the main things we're working on at the moment.
Yeah, the Francis and Flockton.
Francis and Flockton, yeah. I mean, there's a few other little areas that are being dealt with. And
is that delayed or?
Well, it's more that we're in trials on them. We're in trials on Francis.
Okay, so
and I think we have a probable way forward on Flockton, but that's still being checked and looked at.
So that just reflects waiting for the results of that.
Yeah.
And then further down with the Central City projects, Gloucester Street, Manchester to Colombo. So Wakakotahi are now funding 1.4 million towards that. What's the total cost of that? Can you remind me?
Off the top of my head, I can't. What Wakakotahi are funding is through Streets for People, which is effectively trials on the street to try different layouts and different ways of using the street ahead of the final design and construct.
All right.
So we've still got our standard capital project in there, but we've got this Streets for People money to do these trials ahead of that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So this was a special fund that we bid to earlier this year.
Yeah.
So when are you going to start that?
Soon. We're developing options. So there's a whole lot of options that I was sent this week.
Okay. And then on page 122, with the Otakaro Avon River corridor, that's really concerning about the consenting requirement, and ECAN's determined that it's a prohibitive activity to expose groundwater. It becomes a passive water take. Therefore, we're blocked from doing any wetland development in there potentially. Can you just and I can see how the impasse has happened there, but are we going to find a way forward?
Yes, and over the past 2 weeks we've had some very constructive discussions with Environment Canterbury and their consenting staff, and we've got 2 or 3 options that we're advancing in terms of consenting the wetlands and the stormwater work.
Oh, great. That's encouraging. Thank you.
So just for my benefit, Helen, that's at the moment it's holding up some, from what I understand, it's holding up some wetlands that you want to build?
It is, although given the talks over the last 2 weeks, we've just made the decision that we will go and tender that work for delivery this summer. And in the worst case, we will obtain consents for construction and defer getting consents for operations of those stormwater basins. In the best case, we'll get all of those consents through in the next few weeks.
Okay, because it's very important to do it through the summer months. Yeah.
Indeed.
Thank you.
So can I just ask that when you get the positive result, that we could just get a memo about it? Would be really worth celebrating that.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Yanni, Mark, did you have one? No, sorry, Yanni Kieran.
Sorry, I just wanted to just check on the Lancaster Park War Memorial entrance gate. So are they still on target for completion in November 2022? And also, just on the Gloucester Street one, I mean, that seems like a classic example of something that's leapfrogging the craft ones and getting special treatment. So is that going to progress ahead of us even having that transport briefing?
So would you like me to respond to Lancaster Park first?
Yeah,
Sure. No, it's not going to be. It's not going to meet November. We were hoping for Armistice Day, but like many of the heritage rebuilds that we do, the deeper we dig, the harder the job gets. So it's more likely to be closer to the end of December now. But we've been communicating very closely with the RSA, and they're quite comfortable with how things are progressing. We will be opening not just the gates at that time, but also the sort of forecourt area and the historical recognition work that's going on in that area.
And just in response to the Gloucester Streets question, no, the resources needed to support that work isn't being taken away from the craft work. So different things.
Sorry, is that a project that we could substitute, given that you've got Waka Kotahi funding now?
No, it's a completely different project, different people involved. So if we delayed that project, it wouldn't make any difference to any other project that we're doing.
Right.
I think when you do the briefing,
Like
Jane,
what?
I think it's...
How does that make sense?
Sometimes there is a simplistic view about how things happen, and I think it's important that the interdependencies are described.
Yeah, so it's a street design, scheme design.
It is, but the Wakatahi funding is for trials only. So there's a real kind of basic high-level design that we then go out and put temporary measures in the street. See how people like them, tweak them, change them. So it's not a desktop design until much later on. So that's which is the standard capital project that was referred to
So the
earlier.
scheme design option is for the Streets for People funding, not for the permanent.
Yes.
Right. Okay. And then, in regards to that budget, I mean, it all needs to be spent by the end of June next year. There's no way that the budget's going to be spent.
What, the Wakatahi fund?
The Gloucester Street budget.
So you just need to. So yeah, you're probably confusing Gloucester Street projects. So
No, I know the Gloucester Street project we've currently got on a budget is for the money to be expended by the end of this current financial year. We had this debate through the draft annual plan. The amendment to defer it, to push it out, wasn't even allowed to be put, and we were told it had to be delivered within this time frame. Now what we're seeing from here is it would appear that there's no way that time frame is realistic.
So I think, I think we're probably getting caught up a little bit in some detail. I think, can we park this and then come back with a little bit more detail when we do the fuller briefing?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's carried forward. It needs to be complete by the time the theatres open. That's what we're aiming towards, which I think is well into next year, as far as I understand.
We're getting into the weeds a little bit here. Tyler, please. Then Pauline.
Mine's more of a holistic question. Hi, staff. I, for the new councillors, I'm a man of process, and I appreciate that. And I'm just wondering what the key markers are in regards to reprioritising projects, and the justifications as to why you would reprioritise. Appreciative of the LTP, but I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
That's a great question. So next Tuesday, when we do a further initial briefing on the annual plan for 24, we'll be talking about some of the higher level prioritisation criteria. So when you talk about, broadly speaking, and without going into next Tuesday, things like projects that are already in flight, sort of committed, they might be already well into design and committed towards a contractor, where you have regulatory requirements to meet a law. You might also have a critical level of service or a set of resilience criteria to meet. Those would sort of put them towards the top of the list. Other things that might be more discretionary could be things like some of the strategic imperatives that you'll develop through the strategic framework, say climate resilience, climate change, the sort of nicer to have. So those things can be ranked by you through that prioritisation process, and that particularly comes into play as you consider the LTP, the long-term plan, and we'll have some tools for you to participate in and put different weightings onto different criteria to see how they then get prioritised through that process. Yeah, so almost like a multi-criteria analysis type thing, MCA, if you know what that is.
Just capitalising on that and asking, in regards to more environmental and social priorities, are they directed by us to be able to push those forward? I'm talking about libraries, for example. Can they be reprioritised through us through the long-term plan or any other plans along with that?
Yeah, you would heavily influence those criteria through your considerations, starting at the strategic framework, the infrastructure strategies. There's limitations by the financial strategy and the various asset management plans that each service area brings to you. So you have quite a lot of influence about those decision-making points, and then those guide the prioritisations for annual plans or LTPs, if that's consistently flows through. So there's a lot of influence you can bring to bear through those governance level documents.
It's more than influence, you will make choices.
Okay. Yeah. Pauline will probably be the
Just
last
a
one.
very quick one on the Citizens War Memorial. How's that tracking forward? It's supposed to be Armistice Day. That's one question. And if it is going to be finished, is there any sort of event planned to celebrate its revitalisation?
It's very much like Lancaster Park. It's not going to hit Armistice Day, and again, we're in close conversations with the RSA. They're not too concerned because their priority is going to be the Bridge of Remembrance. It's not being held up by anything in particular other than a very slow and meticulous restoration process. It's a very complex rebuild, we're encouraging them obviously to. It's not going to modify the cost, but take the time they need to do it to perfection. Yeah, so it is actually going well, because we are aware that there's been quite a bit of media about that, and so we're ready to talk to people if they want to get an update with a bit more detail. But it's about ensuring that the project team have the space that they need to do it properly. But it's going very well. You're going to see some significant changes as we head towards Christmas. Yeah.
So do you think it might be before Christmas, or you don't no idea? Stay tuned.
I guess for the same reasons, I'm not going to sit here and say yes. But yeah, things are going really well with the restoration, but it's a complex process. Yeah.
Andre.
Thank you. Ngā Pūnawai car park and access improvements. I'm just wondering if we're on track to have the car park and access there by the time the Netzel Centre is completed.
Yes, we are. There will be a report that will come to council for final approval in December because we're modifying the reserve. And the program of work will have it finished in alignment with the Netshall Centre. Obviously, when the demand starts to peak, and that's the contractors are telling us that's approximately September next year.
Beautiful. Thanks very much.
Okay, can I have Paulina move it and Mark will second it? Thank you. Anyway, any debate? Yanni, yes?
Yeah, I appreciate the information in the report, and I do actually think these reports are excellent. They do give us a level of detail that I think is important that we get at a governance level. But I do think also that we do need to start focusing on the craft program. To put it into context, Gloucester Street has now gone up from a $3.4 million project to a $4.8 million project for literally one block of Gloucester Street between Manchester and Colombo, when we have areas in our craft program and in other suburbs like Bromley where we've got limited funds and we're not seeing progress being made in a timely manner. And I cannot understand how these central city projects continue to leapfrog existing projects in the community that are well overdue, that absolutely need to be delivered, because people's satisfaction is at some of the lowest levels we've had, and yet we're still not getting the work done in what I think is a timely manner. So, I appreciate the responses we've had from staff, but I think it's incumbent on us at a governance level to set the priorities for this organisation and then to hold people to account to deliver against those priorities. And we've had an election, we've had a new council. Some of us have been elected on very clear mandates from our communities around what the priorities are. And in my area, it's to get on top of the basics, fix the broken roads that still haven't been, and footpaths that still haven't been fixed post-earthquake, and improve the safety and amenity in those local communities that were hit hardest by the impact of the earthquakes, and also communities that have unfortunately been subject to the offensive and objectionable odours for a number of years, including the past 12 months, which has been horrendous. So I just think, as council, we really do need to set the priorities really clearly. We don't have unlimited resources, and I cannot accept that if we stop one project, that doesn't help deliver on some of the other projects that we feel is important. So hopefully we get a chance to weigh it all up. But in regards to Gloucester Street, it seems sensible that we would use the government funding to do the Streets for People project, but that the permanent doesn't need to be done straight away, and would be better putting that money into fixing the things that have been agreed well ahead of the Gloucester Street being approved by council. So I've sent round councils a copy of the outline of when the craft projects were agreed, what the projects were, and you can see the long delivery times when we've already got a contractor ready to go. And my concern is if we don't do it, then the costs will escalate and we'll get even less of what we've agreed with our community delivered because we've taken so long to do it. We need to speed it up.
Mark?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hear what you're saying there, Yanni, in that reprioritising for our communities is something that we clearly were told many a time in recent times from our communities. Craft, that A in craft does stand for acceleration, and I struggle to understand how we can fail to understand that acceleration means actually getting it done rather than procrastinating on it. Understand that we've got some restrictions on resourcing, but that's something I think as a council that have now been newly elected, we need to look at our priorities and make sure that we do get them right for what we've been told. Getting back to those basics, getting our footpaths and our roads that are broken in many places around the city. The suburbs, out west where I am, we've taken a lot of extra population since the earthquakes, and our infrastructure out there is groaning. And to hear that things can leapfrog and become more priority in the central city when the suburbs where people live their everyday lives is not being dealt to, I think we need to have a serious think about our priorities, and looking forward to this annual plan process to try and pin some of these down and get them moving in the right direction.
Sam?
Look, I appreciate sort of people having a debate about this, but I just want to remind people of the purpose of this report, which is literally to identify the capital program and quite rightly signal issues with it. And I say that because it's quite useful for council as we go into the annual plan, where we can do that work around priorities to establish those. So I think everyone's quite right. We've come in after a new election. There are very clear mandates around getting the basics right, and there is a point for that. The point of this, though, is to flag issues and then let the general managers and their teams go away and work out how they can resolve them. So I think Yanni's got a really good point with CRAF around putting it on the capital watch list. But actually what we need as a council, and I'm sure Jane and the team will pick it up at the transport briefing, is just that really basic timeline around when those projects will be completed and the money associated with them, so that, as Dawn had mentioned, we can make choices. So I kind of just thought it's useful at this first meeting to just outline the parameters of this report, which isn't necessarily to, and I don't want to use the word beat up the organisation, but actually to kind of identify there are challenges and we can work through them. So I think we should just think about that as we move forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Sam. With that, I will, we've got a mover and a seconder. With that, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Ooh. Carried. Right, we're up to item number 8.
Oh, I suppose.
Thank you, guys.
So, good afternoon, Mr Mayor, councillors.
Good afternoon.
My name is Russell Holden. I'm the Head of Finance, and I've been away on leave last little while, which is why Bruce Mower's name is on this report. Bruce is the Corporate Reporting Manager, and Bruce is to my right. And we also have Steve Ballard at the... Sorry, it's Bruce, you moved.
Yeah, that's right.
Steve Ballard. Steve Ballard is the Group Treasurer. So this is the financial performance report for September. So this report comes to Council on a monthly basis, and the October report will be coming to the Finance and Performance Committee right at the end of November on the 30th. So the report covers a number of things: financial position, where we're sitting, forecast of where we anticipate will be at the end of the year, covers off matter on rates, debts, treasury, and there's a summary on insurance. So I'll just start off the report, then Bruce and Steve will come in and add comments and ask any questions which might occur, if that's okay. So from a financial position, at the end of September, which is just the first quarter of the year, we're sitting at a surplus of $5.8 million, and that's come around mainly because of higher transwaste dividends. We got more rates revenue than we anticipated. That's through growth being higher than we thought. Insurance premiums were lower than budgeted, but we've had higher costs and interest, which would become of no surprise to the folk in this room. So that's offset that a wee bit, but it's sitting at 5.8. And at this point in the year, we're looking at a year-end surplus of about $2.1 million. Now, I'll just highlight that that's pretty early in the year to be quantifying that with any solidity. That's just where we think it was at the end of September. But as you'll know, we are living in a very volatile economy at the moment. We're costs and drivers of costs are going very high. Inflation, OCR, CPI, all very high. And they're proposing some challenges for this year and staying within those parameters that we think, and also for pulling together the annual plan. But more will come to that in later reports. So, yeah, just hand over to Bruce now if there's any further comments he'd like to make.
You've pretty much covered the OPEX, Russell. One point I'd make, Section 4, key financial statistics, particularly for new councillors, that really just gives you a sense of scale and quantum. One point I would make there, the blue cloud on the right that talks about a 1% rate increase driven by 6.3 million of OPEX or 97 million of CAPEX. With the latest interest increases, it's now $83 million that will cause a 1% rate increase for CAPEX. Steve can talk a wee bit more if you require about the current interest rate environment. It's section 6 goes into some details around the current variances we're seeing and the forecast variance, revenue and expenditure. Note a number of them offset. we have higher interest costs forecast, but also higher interest revenue. Consenting revenues are up, but consenting costs are also up. So there's a number there that offset each other to some extent. Section 7, in terms of CapEx, Andrew's covered that in his formal report. We've got Te Kaha forecast to significantly spend more than budget and bring forward from future years. That, of course, is offset by Crown funding, whereas the core capital program, which is forecast to be under-delivered this year, will result in lower borrowing this year, and that will push out into future years. I'll hand over to Steve for section 9, the Treasury and interest rate comments.
Yeah, thanks, Bruce. Hi, everyone. I guess rather than read through this, it's quite a short section. More important, I think, is just the context of how we're operating and the impact it might have on our annual planning going forward. You obviously all know that we're in a very unusual economic circumstance at the moment. I just thought it was interesting to look back and remind ourselves the annual plan that we're currently living through, so the current financial year. We were planning at the time, the market consensus was for an official cash rate to climb up in a fairly orderly way and peak at around about 3%. Current market pricing somewhere over 5%, and to happen much faster. We won't be hit with all of that 2% plus of interest cost increase because we hedge the bulk of our existing borrowing. We try and keep between sort of 70 and 80% of our existing borrowing fixed for the year ahead. But obviously that does decay away over time, plus we've got new borrowing coming on board every year. There's no escaping interest rate movements. Eventually we will have to pay all of them. What we try and do with our hedging program is try and smooth it so we don't have too much volatility from year to year. We're not going to bang up 2% straight away, but we will bang up maybe 0.7, 0.8%. It's a constant review that we're doing. So I've put in here some projections on the bottom of page 6 of this report of roughly what our overall cost of funding is likely to be for ratepayer funded debt. We're reviewing that again through the annual planning process. It will end up probably a little bit higher than that, but it won't be huge spikes up. But it's just that context of things are pressuring upwards. And I just heard while I was waiting, you'll probably hear it on the news tonight if you haven't heard already, the labour market data came out for the latest quarter. Unemployment's still around 3.3%, and more importantly for the Reserve Bank, hourly private sector wages are up about 8.5% on the year. And it sounds like a really odd thing to complain about people getting pay rises, but they will be particularly concerned about the inflationary impacts. That will reinforce this idea that our interest costs are going to be higher for longer than anyone had previously anticipated. As I say, we started to build that in. Hopefully we'll not have to do too much extra adjustment, but it's a live, active thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Was your mic on?
No, you're right. Sorry, Aaron, it wasn't.
Yeah, just not for me, because I can pick it up through someone else's mic, but it's for people that massive crowd that watching this online.
Thank you, sir.
You wouldn't believe the numbers here, Aaron.
We're up to item 11 now. We had a very good briefing on this the other day. I'm going to go out and say, are we all sort of generally happy about this? Have I got a thank you, Jake and Tim.
Second.
So, any debate? Oh, you got a question? Far away, Melanie.
I'd like an officer down here though, then please.
You might not know the answer, Helen, but we did request
At the DP.
what the content of the letters that went out to the
Yes, it's on the big tin can.
Okay.
It was posted on the big tin can, and
Right.
it included the line proposal to cancel the stop banks, or words to that effect, in the notice for the seminar.
Mhm.
So it was made very, very clear that the project would be cancelled.
But cancelled in the 21-31 annual long-term plan. So
That's correct.
yeah, so it may come.
It's not gone forever. Forever. Mm. So is there anyone else got a question?
That's correct.
Mark and Yanni. Mark first, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm sort of picking up on Councillor Coker's line of inquiry when we were in the briefing. Just wanting to make sure that we have consulted the community well enough with this, that they are not going to be taken by surprise at this decision if we go ahead with it. Don't know who can answer that.
Yes, we have consulted with both the community board and the community groups that are interested in the project. So there are a number of stakeholder groups that are more interested than the general public, and they have all been consulted, yes.
Yanni.
Thank you, and thank you for the work you did on the webinar and the letter. I just wondered if the people that attended the webinar or received the letter were advised that there was a report on the council agenda today where they could seek speaking rights if they had a view on this to express their views. Like, are they aware that we're making the decision today, and were they given the opportunity to talk to us?
Not expressly, no.
They were informed that the matter would be going to council for decision, and that the report would be updated subsequent to that engagement, and that staff would report back to the community board and in other ways to the community after the decision by council.
The other question I had was in terms of the report. I just want to kind of get an understanding for this term. Like, this is something that impacts on several local community boards, and the report hasn't gone through the community boards for recommendations or for a formal view. So I was just trying to understand what the process would be around our community boards where there's something of importance being engaged to provide a formal view. Like, what's the kind of protocols that we have around that so that they feel like they've been included in our decision making?
There's a lot of work that has gone towards us along the lines of buying a whole lot of low-lying land. We've purchased that. We've spent a small fortune on dredging and a larger fortune on all the sediment storage ponds, which have mitigated so many things. So I think it's pretty clear that.
Sorry, I'm not disagreeing with the staff advice, and I think staff have done an amazing job explaining what I'm concerned about is to understand in terms of decision making, the level of engagement we've had with our local community boards, who have within their terms of reference a requirement to keep an overview of levels of service in their local communities.
So, Councillor Johansson, in section 5.33 of the report, it clearly states that joint briefings were undertaken and when those were undertaken, and there are 1, 2, 3 joint briefings listed there to the community boards. Is that not correct, staff?
Yeah, so we're looking good.
Yeah, sorry, it's around the decision making. So, yeah. No, but like in terms of like decision making, so what sometimes would happen with council reports is the formal report would actually go to the community board for a recommendation or for formal feedback. That was what I was trying to understand. I appreciate that they've had briefings, and I really, commend staff for the work they've done to engage. But I guess the key concern is that we've had an election, we've got new community boards established, and I just want to kind of understand at what point would a project like this go to a community board for a formal view versus just the informal briefings. That was all.
I don't think that's a question for my team to answer. If you're asking, there's a new community board, should we go round the traps again? I think that's really a question for...
You've done your work and you've done it very, very well, I must say. Tim?
I'd venture to say that the older members on the community board should sit down and have a really good bit of a discussion if that's the case. But I mean, I want to thank the staff. It's been...
Thorough.
We've been gone through this a lot, and I've talked to a lot of the community. You have as well, and it's been at the start of this, I was against it, but getting the information, I'm totally in support of it. So I don't know if we could have done more communication.
No, I think we've done that.
If the community or the community boards so desired, would they have an opportunity to come and discuss this with us as part of our annual plan process?
Well, they certainly could. It's always open to them, yes.
Okay, so I've got a mover in Tyler, thank you. And I've got a seconder in...
We've got a mover and a seconder.
I've got that right, sorry. Sorry. So, any debate?
One of the things that kind of struck me is when you build stop banks, it puts pressure on other areas of the system that you're trying to mitigate. And I guess for those communities that aren't in my ward, further downstream, there could be serious consequences. We've done a huge amount of work. The retention basins and storage basins, which this council and this team's done, are just outstanding. They are... Yeah, the award-winning. They are, and I'm sure they must have put some chicken in the water, because when we went and had a look at those big tuna cruising along were pretty impressive, I have to say, and I'm sure it was a bit of fresh chicken in one of their mouths, but I'm sure that was just, we were lucky. But there comes a point where you can only talk to the community so much. I think we've really done a great job, and I say we, the team's done a great job, so thank you very much for what you've done. And look, we are always open to further discussion with our communities, and there will be issues, and who knows what the environment's going to do. It's not going to get better, let's face it, it's only going to get worse, and we're going to have to cross that bridge, so to speak, when it comes.
Just want to sort of remind councillors that we've got some pretty bleak statistics around people feeling like they have influence on the decisions that we make, historic low levels. And I think one of the principles of decision making should be that people know how they can influence it and should be given opportunities to talk to the decision makers. And what I'm concerned about, without taking away from any of the really good work that staff have done around flooding, because I do want to acknowledge the huge amount of time and resources that staff have done to address this very serious flooding issues around the Heathcote River. It has been incredible, has been ongoing, and it has been significant, and it has improved a lot in the local areas. But the principle for me is twofold in terms of this report. One, if we believe in our community boards, it should formally go to community boards for a recommendation, even if it isn't within their delegated decision making. It is absolutely within their terms of reference. And two, that people that are impacted by what is considered a medium decision in terms of significance should actually know when the decision is being made and be given the opportunity to talk directly to those who are making the decision. So, again, no criticism of the work that staff have done, but I just am really concerned about the process on this. I'm happy to support 1, but I won't be supporting 2 and 3 today because I'm concerned about the process.
Okay, so all good. So I've got a mover and a seconder, so I will put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. Against? On 1.
Yeah, just support for 1 and just have my overall.
Yep. Got that, Sam? Carried.
Aaron.
Oh, sorry, Aaron.
What was your question?
What was your vote?
What did you vote?
I said yes. Sorry, did you not? I went yes like that.
Right.
Sorry.
Thank you, man. Righto, so that carried. Yep. So we're up to the next one.
Botanic Gardens.
This one's going to be quick. Now, who was happy to, oh, I thought so. Thank you, Tim. And Mark's happy to second it. Any questions? Any debate? Right, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. So, we don't have to take that. Oh, yes, we do. Yes, we do.
We're going to, yeah, we go straight to that one.
Mm-hmm.
So and that's a resolution, so we need to move on second.
Righto. So now I've got a resolution here to exclude the public, all three of them. Pauline, Sam. Yep. Thank you very much.
Is that carried?
We'll put the motion. Everyone in favour of going into PX? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you.